gentlemen, I'm your host for the day, Bushra Farnaz. Welcome to the inauguration ceremony of our day-long conference on accountability in Bangladesh, issues and debates.
Vice Chancellor of the university, the Pro-Vice Chancellor, deans of the various faculties, here put together interacting, that creates a momentum of its own. For example, we can pool our resources for local institution building. Global studies and governance program, mine, this is what I'm trying to do. CIVT. I don't know if I will be completely successful. I don't know if I will have the energy to continue.
Participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're very happy to welcome all of you to the Accountability in Bangladesh Issues and Debate Conference hosted by Independent University Bangladesh and organized by Global Studies and Governance Program at School of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. This great event accentuates our commitment to nurture and disseminate new knowledge in Bangladesh and global society. Indeed, once again, I welcome all of you and wish the conference a great success. Thank you very much indeed.
To the Human Resource Department of my school, the School of Business, and the Global Studies Department of IUB for their extraordinary effort in arranging this grand event. I think it will continue for the whole day and run into the night as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is envisaged that the intellectual discourse will result in future collaborations between universities, research institutions, and industries, both locally and internationally. In particular, we expect that the focus will be given to issues on accountability, which is in dire need in Bangladesh society all over, in all aspects of our life. As the right term and right theme that has been picked up by Professor Imtiaz for this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm basically a traditionalist, and I believe in age-old traditions, old societal and family values. But the values are waning in Bangladesh context. This is a great challenge in Bangladesh society today. Along with values, institutions are decaying at a very fast pace. However, private sector is going a bit, and they are delivering. But again, some of them are flouting the corporate social responsibility. In our business school, we have a course called CSR, and we teach this course, and we find there is a serious lack of CSR by our industrialists and businessmen.
Just a few days ago, I was reading a newspaper in the morning, and I read about this incident. I'm not going to mention any names or place or anything, but there was one influential local, I don't know how to call it, Don, who came with 20 or 25 of his supporters to his rival in a broad daylight. In the middle of the day, they came with machetes, sharp weapons, whatever, and they killed the guy. And then they left. And I was talking to my colleagues, and I vented my frustration. I said, how can people be so stupid? Now, of course, there's crime everywhere, right? But how can they think that they will get away with it? And they said, sir, a lot of people do. Here in Bangladesh, actually, they do get away with it. You can kill somebody, you can murder somebody in a broad daylight in front of a lot of witnesses, and you can actually get away with it. And that is just one example of a lot of problems that we are facing here in Bangladesh. And most of those problems can be traced back to poor governance. Now, of course, in turn, poor governance is associated with weak or even absent accountability mechanisms, right? Now, weak or even absent accountability mechanisms are caused by many social, political, economic situations or problems, which in turn again can only be solved by good governance. So we get into this vicious cycle, right? Poor governance, lack of accountability, which cannot be fixed without good governance. Today's conference, I hope, will address the question of where this vicious cycle could be stopped. How can we intervene? What are the things that we can do? Of course, we will not find the solutions in this one conference, but as our Vice Chancellor often points out, raising the right questions is more important than finding the solutions, because once you have the right questions, eventually you will come up with the right answers. So I have a lot of hopes for this conference and for all of you participants to contribute to solving this issue and this problem within Bangladeshi context. Now, at the end, I would like to thank Professor Imtiaz Hussain. It is through his relentless efforts that this conference is taking place. It is through his efforts that IUB has a new program, well, relatively new program in global studies and governance. So I wish all of you a great success, and I hope you will enjoy today's program. Thank you very much.
Have a framework. And oftentimes then I was just pointing out to somebody that one of the things that I am concerned about is that in our educational system, students aren't able to put things in some kind of a context. It's often, when you ask students to speak about something, they tend to be fairly rambling and incoherent and very descriptive, and it's difficult for them to think about the big picture and then drill down to the small picture to think about the forest and then the trees. And I thought that this is an exercise that might be useful with regard to this conference as well. Well, I think the topic of this conference is accountability. Now, the first question I have is, what does this mean? By whom, to whom? To be accountable, someone has to be accountable to somebody, whether it's an organization, whether it's an individual, whether it's a set of principles. So there has to be someone who you're accountable to. It could be yourself. And the actor has to be identified. Who is it that you're wanting this accountability from? It could be an individual, it could be an institution, it could be the nation. So I think in every single context, that's really the framework that we need to think about. So, and accountability cannot be thought about without some sense of what are the objectives, what do we care about? Accountability is a fidelity to those objectives. If those objectives are not being adhered to, then you're not accountable. But without defining the objectives, you can't even think about accountability. And the other so the first thing is you've got to decide what is it that we care about. And it's going to be different in different contexts. In the context of a university, and I'll come back to that because that's really the context that I'm most familiar with. There are several layers of objectives that we may want to achieve. And in each of those layers, there has to be accountability. And in every case, there has to be someone who's accountable to somebody else, and we can identify them. Now, in any discussion of accountability, it's sort of completely intertwined with this notion of transparency. You can't be accountable till people know that you're accountable. So there has to be some way that it has to be apparent that whatever the objectives are that you're trying to achieve, that they are being addressed. It doesn't mean that you can achieve 100% of what you want, but at least the process should be transparent. The process should be open to assessment. So the next thing is, how do we assess whether you're accountable or not? How do we know that you're accountable? What are the mechanisms that we utilize? And here there's a whole list of, we can have formal mechanisms, we can have legal mechanisms, we can have ethical responsibilities. And I would contend, I think as Professor Imtiaz and others have pointed out, that ultimately accountability is ethical. Ultimately, it's an individual responsibility. You know, it's sort of saying that why do you do the right thing? You don't do the right thing because if you don't do the right thing, you're going to go to jail or you're going to get caught or you're going to pay a penalty. That would be, I think, a very, very unfortunate set of circumstances. But oftentimes, that's how we set up our system.
All of you again to today's conference, named as Breaking the Accountability, Issues and Debates. The topic of this specific session here is business, capital, and the psyche. And I'm very glad to inform you that the chairperson of this session is Professor Dr. Muhammad Aminul Karim, Dean, School of Business, Independent University, Bangladesh. Along with Professor Karim, today we also have Professor Ghulam Ahmed Farooqi, Dean, Business School, Green University, Dhaka, and also Mr. Musharraf Hussain, Head of Human Resources Management, ICDDRB, as distinguished discussants of this session. Now, I'd like to introduce our session chair to you. Professor Dr. Muhammad Aminul Karim completed his secondary and higher secondary education from Rajshahi Cadet College. Later, he joined Bangladesh Army and completed master's degree in defense studies from National University of Bangladesh.
Thank you.
Investment positively. If they do not acknowledge investment positively, organization will not get their expected return. Therefore, attention is needed to be paid on human resource management and their psychology. So therefore, today, another research has stated that the failure of HR process contract, which goes more than traditional contract.
Example that how accountability may be grossly neglected, and in opposite side how accountability can be properly discharged.
Bring in some element of that. And I say again, I will re-emphasize constructively, which you do not do. But if you are ensuring justice, I can assure you, they will listen. Just say, please include the actual data from the ground, take some of the case studies, and Professor Nadim, I'm sure will help you. Well,
actually, in Bangladesh, so we are simply tremendously, performing in education, and power generation, airlines, railway, garments, textiles, knitwear, as well as the healthcare sector. And I did my samples, I did my
a book which came out in 2016, edited by Professor Imtiaz of Dhaka University, and it addresses the Dhaka University, which is political challenges of social accountability for SDGs attainment.
And in Bangladesh, in global, you can say that election is a very popular means of ensuring social accountability.
There were 2 incidents when journalists barged into the ICUs of hospitals and began peppering the survivors with questions. Once the journalist even identified himself as a well-wisher just to get an interview. In the process of the interview, he did not mention who he was to the victim and asked a number of insensitive questions, but also a lack of proper grounding in the understanding of being a journalist. Media may be a business, but every business is governed by a set of ethics. Some things just cannot be justified, and manipulating the victim.
সেটা খুবই প্রাসঙ্গিক হওয়ার দরকার ছিল। একটা জিনিস প্রথমেই আলোচনা করা দরকার যে সাংবাদিকতা, এবং আপনারা নিজেরাও সেটা বলছেন, সাংবাদিকতা তো বাইরের কিছু না, আমরা সাধারণ মানুষই সাংবাদিক, যে জায়গা থেকে আসি। কাজে অবজেক্টিভিটি আপনি নিজেই বলেছেন যে সেটা মানুষ থেকে আশা করা যায় না, যার যে অবস্থান আছে। কে আলোচনা করছে, কেন আলোচনা করছে, সেই জিনিসগুলি যদি দেখি তাহলে দেয়ালগুলি কোথায় সেগুলি বোঝাটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আমি আজকের এই তালিকার মধ্যে দেখলাম যে অনেকেই যারা ব্যাপারে কিছু বলবো না, বা আমি ওর ব্যাপারে বলবো, এর ব্যাপারে বলবে, সেটাও হতে পারে। সেখানে ওই শিক্ষাটা আরো অনেক বেশি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ হয়ে যাচ্ছে, সেটা নিয়ে।
Sundarban, because I didn't have enough water with me to get some drinking water.
Achieving efficiency as they are bestowed with the responsibility of implementation. 28% utilization of the allocated resources. Look at how we are explaining accountability for
my dear friends and my dear students. To begin with,
about content analysis. I had a course on development journalism.
So development journalism is not an issue that is sellable to the people. It will be sold outside your country, but not here.
I'm shocked because I'm actually doing the same thing right now in journalism class, and we had like around.
I really wish the success of this entire program forward. Thank you so much.
I'm grateful for inviting me here. This is, I consider as an academician point of view regarding methodology and all this variable. They feel the organization is their organization, they feel management systems. If my people come at 9 o'clock, no matter what they work, and leave at 5.
So sorry, 5:00.
You're the outsiders. Guest.
How the other issues are actually related. So moving on to the
Of the intelligence, they are internal control, external control, parliamentary oversight, judicial monitoring. To seek further answer, my main secrecy culture.
So theory is basically a relationship from A to B, however that relationship is.
drive us to have a better transfer, and with that,
you must be accountable for your action and behavior, which is sexist, I didn't believe it. Certain integrity, certain standards.
And it's almost given in the Constitution. So when it says that the Constitutional article
in every 8 hours. So our response was, we can make 600 pairs per day leather shoes.
Then 80 years I can try, but I cannot chop down the tree.
Officers, the journalists. So you have some bit of, always the contradiction between the two groups.
And what I've seen, that for paper number 1, you have said that the sampling technique, what you have considered this. If you consider these sampling techniques for qualitative research,
either fear or pressure or psychological.
yes, I have a brilliant mind. They see, I remember that. And Lieutenant Kelly.
Yes, yes. আমাদের জন্য খুব ভালো, কারণ এই সুযোগটা আমরা সাধারণত পাই না। যেটা একেবারেই সত্য, মিলিটারির প্রধান কাজ দেশকে সংরক্ষণ করা।
This for you actually. I'm the host.
And members of the faculty and management, dear guests and students.
And sir, if you don't mind, আমি আপনাকে একটু অনুরোধ করব যে give your thoughts on, and I think the way you framed it was accountability.
And this is something which is, I must say, that more conspicuous in its absence.
And we are accountable to the Board of Trustees, what they call now.
So that's the first thing. Then later on he wrote a book. He's written several books, but one of the most, my favorite quote, that academic politics is so vicious.
But this is how we put it. Okay, I have some books on that. Some major types, Vedic. It's simple as that. Somebody just put, and at least to understand what is inside.
Dr. Omar Rahman ended that he wants to be a politician.
But you also have to accept that once a decision is made,
Like every constituency, in every constituency we can have like you guys and us could be broken down and we could have a good share of knowledges.
That the expectation from the people on our roads and highways network is not.
এই যে 13টা কোম্পানি আবেদন করলো, তার থেকে একজনকে বাছাই করলেন।
She never used Mohakali flyover, but her tax money was used for Mohakali flyover.
Foreign aid and accountability. There I will discuss about relations between aid effectiveness.
Good governance and development, accountability role.
Independent University Authority for inviting me over here.
I'm a financial engineer by nature, and I've actually studied those things, like how quantitative things actually would incorporate into qualitative development of a system.
In employee training and employee education, and as a result they're losing a lot of
যে কোনো যানবাহন যাওয়ার সময় তাদের গাড়ির সামনের দিকে একটা
যে হান্নান সাহেবের ব্যাপারে একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ প্রশ্ন আছে, যে জন লকের উদ্ধৃতি দিয়ে উনি বলছেন যে যদি কোনো শাসকের জবাবদিহিতা থাকতে হয় তাহলে তাকে আপনার ক্ষমতাচ্যুত করার অধিকার জনগণের থাকবে।
প্রশ্ন ছিল একটা প্রশ্ন, অ্যাকচুয়ালি প্রশ্ন না, এটা একটা কমেন্ট হিসেবে আমি বলতে চাই। সেটা হচ্ছে যে পিপিপি নিয়ে যে কথা হয়েছে আপনার টপিকটা নিয়ে, সেখানে আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছে যে সরকার যে সমস্ত বিদেশি প্রতিষ্ঠানকে আমন্ত্রণ জানিয়েছে যে আসেন আমরা টেন্ডারে অংশগ্রহণ করি।
Who really makes a gross profit of 5 crore taka, they have to give 3%.
May I now request the audience, if you do have any question.
From 2014 to 2015, it had gone up many folds, from 15 or 16,000.
Particularly the SME entrepreneurs. So then we had a big road show.
ট্রাস্টটা ফান্ডটা চালু করেন এবং $50 মিলিয়ন তখন সেটা ছিল। তারপরে বর্তমান অর্থমন্ত্রী সেটাকে বাড়িয়ে $200 মিলিয়ন করেছেন।
I was just reading in some journal paper that CSR is now what we are talking is
what should we say, conference, seminar, workshop, everything combined.